Hi, welcome to In Air's Kitchen. Today we're going to make our own pasta, and I'm going to show you how to do this. And it's really, it shouldn't be intimidating if you've never made pasta at home. We'll just walk you through each step, and it's something you can get done. I can usually get it made before the water boils, so I'll show you that way that we make pasta at home. And it's generally a lot tastier than the pasta you purchase. It also, again, I always think when you make things yourself, one, you get to have the fun of making it. Number two, you get to, usually it tastes a little bit better. And then the third thing, which is like really important to me and our family, is you get to choose what ingredients go in. So we're going to be able to make this out of the exact flour we want to use instead of just taking whatever's in the grocery store shelves. So, we'll make the pasta today. We're also going to make pesto, and I think pesto is something that probably most people, if they're going to have pesto, they're more likely to buy it than make it. But again, it's not that difficult to make, and one of the really fun things when you make pesto yourself, you can make it out of whatever you want. And you can make pesto out of basil, but you can also use kale or chard. We're going to use this garlic mustard, which we've just foraged outside, and you can use a lot of different things to make pesto. It's actually a really wonderful vehicle for bitter greens. It's a great way to eat whatever greens are in season, and there's a lot of different kinds of pestos you can make. So the ingredients for that is going to be garlic mustard for us. You could use any other bitter greens that you have, and we're also going to use olive oil, lemon juice, and we're going to use I think we're going to use, you can use any kind of nut you'd like, but we're going to use pine nuts, and some salt and pepper. Traditionally pesto has Parmesan cheese in it. We're going to skip that, so we're going to omit that and leave it vegan. And if you have a nut allergy, at Clover we make pestos with lots of different seasonal greens, and we often use other seeds instead of nuts. So we'll often use like sunflower seeds to be that background component. So it's a nice thing, it's flexible that way. I'm also going to add garlic, I almost forgot. So we're going to make pasta and we're going to make pesto today. We're going to make a full meal, so we'll make garlic bread. And this is just going to be bread, garlic, and butter. So there's not a lot to that one, but we'll walk through how to do it. And last things, we'll do a simple salad. And here I think we'll have some lettuce. And we'll make a simple dressing. And I don't know yet what that's going to be. We'll figure that out and come back to it. But that's what we're going to make. So we'll have a whole meal at the end of this. And I've had people asking me, what have you been eating? What meals have you had? And I was thinking it might be useful to have a few shows where we're constructing an entire meal and you get to see how everything comes together. We may start relying on some techniques from previous episodes. So if you haven't caught up on some of those basics, you might see me grab, not today, but on a different show, grab beans out of the refrigerator, and I'm assuming we've already made them and they're there. So if you didn't know how to make beans, you can go back and watch some of those previous episodes, but I'm going to try to build upon things we've done before. And that's really the fun of home cooking, is you end up making things that you can then use later, and you end up being able to make really quick meals that are super nutritious and delicious. And my kids may or may not join me today. It's gorgeous outside, so I think they're running around having a fun time out there. But let's get started. I think what we should do is make the pesto first, because once it's rolling, the pasta happens very quickly. So what we have here is a bunch of garlic mustard, and my kids did help me pick this. Like I said, it's really beautiful outside today. And garlic mustard is this funny plant. It's an invasive species, and I'm just going to try and get one I can show you here. It shouldn't be living in our forests. It's an invasive species, and it comes up really quickly. It comes up before most other plants do. and then it seeds and it spreads itself and does all that before most other plants are ready. So it really dominates and takes over the forest, and so it chokes out a lot of native plants. So it's an invasive species, but it's an invasive species that has an advantage versus a lot of the native species, and it is really destructive to a lot of forest habitats. When we moved to Lincoln, there's a whole big activity here of pulling garlic mustard every spring, and we learned about that, and we've been doing that every spring. And I was curious, where did this stuff come from? And I did a little research one year and found out that it was a culinary herb. So it was something that settlers brought here from Europe, and they planted on purpose because they like to eat it. And then they didn't probably realize it was going to spread and cause all these problems hundreds of years later. But when you pick this one, it's pretty young. It's tender, and you can tell what it is by this look. Their leaves, these white flowers, and then most distinctly, when you take one of these leaves and you rub it in your fingers, it smells like garlic, like pretty strongly of garlic. And if you taste it, it has like a little bit of a mustardy flavor. So that's the name, mustard garlic. And we just went out on our own property, and we have a lot less of this now, believe it or not, than we used to. Like when we moved here, we used to have a lot more of this. But we've been picking it every year, and when you pick it, you want to pick it before the seeds come, and you want to tear it up by the roots. And if you're going to use it to make some food with, the earlier you pick it, the better. You can see I'm sort of plucking out the soft, tender parts of this. I don't want the stems, this tough stem, too much. You can see it gets more woody at the bottom. I don't want those. But these just came out of our yard, and this is something that you can forage, and it's fun because we are doing a good thing by reducing the population of garlic mustard, but we also get to make some food with it. And clover, each year we've been taking a group of volunteers out to pick garlic mustard, and then we've been using it at Clover to make food that we sell. So we make pesto out of this, and that obviously we're not doing that this year because it's not a very social distanced activity. But and our own property usually doesn't have enough garlic mustard for a whole crew of people picking things, so we go out to other conservation land and work with the local conservation departments, and we fill up trash bags full of this stuff, and then we clean it and everything, and then make pesto out of it. So this is a fun one for us to make today. If you are in an area where you don't have garlic mustard, if you're like in New England, I have no idea outside of New England what to suggest on this, but if you want garlic mustard and you don't have it right around because you're in Somerville or something like that, you can take a little day trip and find a place where there's more of this. I think the towns out by us, it's in all of the forests, and anything you can grab, take out of the ground, is doing a benefit to the forest. So, and thank you to Stacia, who was, I think, telling Lucia that she saw garlic mustard coming up because I hadn't seen it yet, but Lucia mentioned it to me, and I went outside and looked around for it, and voila, here we go. So you can see there's like roots here, and there's dirt here, and I don't want to get too much of that, but I'm going to wash all this really thoroughly as well. So we're just getting enough that we can make pesto with. Now, normally I would cut this with basil. So I would use something like this, and I would maybe a third of the pesto would be made out of this, and 2/3 of the pesto may be made out of basil. I think we have some recipes sort of like that at Clover. Today though, I don't have any basil, and so I'm just going to go all garlic mustard. So we'll see how that works out. I think it'll be yummy. It'll be a little more bitter. The basil is really sweet, relatively speaking, so when you mix the basil in there, you get rid of some of the bitterness. I'm not being, I'm not trying to get every single little leaf here, which is fine because there's so much of this, and it's not going really to any waste. I'm just going to put it out, and it'll rot outside. In our compost, or I don't know if they're doing it this year, but they usually have like a pickup they do. They give us trash bag, paper bags to put all this in, and somebody comes by and picks it up. because they don't want the seeds to spread. All right, so we're getting to a place where I'm pretty happy with that. And this is, I'm just looking how much I have. And I think that's going to be good to make pesto with. So I'm going to go ahead and fill that up with water. And just a little tip. This is sort of about how I use the kitchen, but I have a 2-bay sink for a reason. And when people first started having sinks in their kitchens, most of those old farm sinks had multiple bays. And it's sort of a similar reason to how we use sinks in commercial kitchens, which is when you're washing stuff, it's nice to have more than one bay. You can have one that's dirty and one that's clean. And you can also use your sink to do stuff like this. So as long as you keep your sink really clean, it can become part of how you process stuff. And we haven't done a whole lot of fresh vegetables, partly because of the time of year, but if we keep the show up into the summertime, you'll see a lot of shows would start over here, because as I'm getting stuff out of the garden or I'm getting stuff from farmers, this is often where I'm starting, is just getting everything clean. And right now I'm still just picking out any parts that I think are like woody and tough. Just don't want too much fibers in there. That's getting pretty good. All right, so now these are well rinsed now. These are just grown on our property, so like they're going to be organic, basically, not certified organic, but we certainly don't put any chemicals on these or anything to grow them. And but I still want to wash them really well, because there's going to be dirt on them and who knows what else. So I just think it's always a good idea to start out with everything with a nice wash. And I think I'm just looking at these and thinking, let's, hey Blue.
Hi.
You want to help me, buddy?
Yeah.
Oh, good, because there's some things that require little hands.
Oh, wow.
Could you do me a favor and pick some flowers out of there? Like, I was just thinking we could hold some of these flowers and then we could use those to garnish the pasta at the end. So if we want to make, like, you guys want to both do that? Just fill this little bowl with just the flowers only, okay?
All right.
Thank you. All right, so what we've done now is we've cleaned this out, and I'm just going to spin this to get some of the water out of that. Now, if I was making a basil pesto, I would have done this exact same thing, just with basil. And we're going to put the greens into the blender. You finding some, Blue? Did I take them all?
We're still looking.
You're still looking?
Yeah.
Here.
Oh, do you? Oh, yeah, I see another down there.
Yeah. We could always pull some more from outside, too, right? Just thought it'd be nice to have a few flowers. All right, and let's get the rest of these. Okay. So we've got that filled up. Blue, you might grab some lemons? Now, let's do one to start with. Why don't you grab two just in case we need two? Thanks, bud. All right, so we're gonna start out with one lemon. So pesto is there's very traditional pesto, which obviously isn't what we're making here, and then there's some like there's a more broad like territory of that I think we could call pesto, which is where we're playing here. And that's where you get to use things like kale, chard, and garlic mustard. But this isn't a strict traditional Italian pesto, obviously. You want to squeeze that? So the way I think about this is it's a great vehicle for local seasonal greens. It's a great way to use very bitter greens. We're going to take these greens and we're going to balance those with some acid, which is what the lemon juice is bringing. If you didn't have lemons, you could use vinegar here, but it's much yummier as lemons. And then we're going to put a lot of olive oil in there. And when I was first trying to make pesto, I screwed it up again and again, and it's because I think, like a lot of people, who grew up with when I did, I grew up thinking fats were bad for us, which is not true. And I would always try and skimp on the olive oil. And as a result, I just never got pesto. And then if I had it at a restaurant or if I bought it somewhere, it would be awesome. And then I'd try and make it at home, and I would just put a little bit of oil in there, and it just wouldn't work. So part of making pesto work is a lot of olive oil, which we'll see in a few minutes. If you don't have olive oil, you can use a different oil, but I love olive oil. It tastes great. It's really good for us. We're going to put some salt in here. I'm just starting out with a ½ teaspoon of salt, and then we'll return to that when the pesto's all blended up, and we'll taste it and see if it needs more. And I would just, that's a great job. Got it all squeezed out in there. And for the olive oil, I would usually just pour this in, but so that I can show you guys what we're doing, I'm gonna try and take the measurements here. That was a little bit full, so I did a little spill, but don't worry, we're not gonna lose any of that beautiful olive oil. There's 1 cup, and that's not gonna be enough. But don't worry, I got it. So I spilled some olive oil on my cutting board, but we're going to try and recover it because it's precious stuff. There we go. All right, now I'm gonna, I think we're gonna probably do, so that's 1½ cups of olive oil right now. We may end up going with more, but I'm gonna stop right there for now. We'll blend it up and see how it's going. And now we need some garlic in here too. And so I'm going to do a really simple thing with the garlic. I'm just going to cut off the roots from the garlic. And I'm going to put my palm there. And I'm just going to smash that with my hand. And we're going to throw the garlic in there. If you want, you can make pesto different, like you can make it very thin, you can make it thick and chunky. I'm going to blend this up pretty well, so I'm putting those garlic in whole because I know they're all going to get blended up. But if you want a chunkier pesto, you may want to chop that a little bit first so that you don't have to do as much blending to get the garlic ready. And the last thing we're going to do, we're going to put a little bit of ground pepper, and we're going to put some pine nuts in there. I was surprised to see I had pine nuts. I was going through the cupboard the other day and saw these pine nuts there. I thought we should use those. Now this is a very traditional ingredient for pesto, but you can use almonds in place of this. You can use sunflower seeds. There's lots of great alternatives to pine nuts if you don't have these. And we're gonna go, that's a full cup of pine nuts. We'll save the rest of those. We'll use those to garnish at the end, okay? All right, so I have in here, garlic mustard, but you could use a different kind of bitter green, olive oil, lemon juice, pine nuts, salt, pepper, and garlic. Pretty simple, which is true of a lot of Italian food, which is really fun about it. And so it's going to depend a lot on the quality of the ingredients. So we've got a lot of yummy stuff in here. So go ahead and put this in the blender, and I'm going to use the stick. This blender is made to work with this stick. If you don't have a blender that has like made to work with a stick, don't just stick a spoon in there or something. It'll grind up. Instead, stop the blender. Use a spatula. So I'm going to start at a low speed, and I'm just using the stick to keep the stuff down a little bit. And if anybody has questions, shoot them our way. We've got the questions open. I'm sure Blue will be back to man the question booth. So I'm bringing the speed up a little bit now. Alright, so as I was saying before, you could make a more chunky pesto. I was aiming for something that was less chunky, and that would just, you'd vary how much you're blending it. So let's open this up, have a little taste.
I try some?
Yeah, here, let me get you this. It's really good. You know, it has a little bitterness, which is from the garlic mustard. So to balance this, I may add a little bit of sugar to it, which might sound funny. I wouldn't want it to taste sweet, but I might just balance a little bit of that bitterness. What do you think, Blue? What do you think, Vi?
Well, I think that's really good.
Do you think a little bit of sweetness or no?
Definitely. It tastes good, but it's really good now.
You're not going to turn down the sweetness. Just put a little bit of sugar in. Not a lot. I don't want to taste the sugar. I don't want the thing to taste sweet. It'll be weird then. But I just want to...
Sugar pesto.
I just want to balance that a little bit. I'm also going to put a little more salt in it.
It tastes really good though.
You like it?
Mm-hmm.
I think it's going to be a delicious pasta. So we're probably a little bit shy of a teaspoon of salt total in here now. And we'll just bring this back. The lemon juice is going to bring some acid in there, which is really nice. But the lemon juice is doing another thing, which is it's keeping this bright green color. And, well, let's not read. Get a new spoon. Good call, Violet.
I'm just going to want my spoon.
It's really yummy. This is going to be really delicious, so yay. Usually, like I said, I make this with basil, and so I was hoping we would end up with something that's yummy, but I think,
It's really good.
I think it's going to be good. Alright, so that's pesto. And I think if you think of pesto this way as a vehicle for bitter greens, and don't feel too bound to the traditional pesto, you can have a lot of fun with it, which is it's really an awesome thing. And it's really great to have something like that that's a fallback when you've got some greens, some bitter greens that are in season and you want to use up from your garden or wherever else. This is a really great way to do that. Alright, so next thing, I want to get some garlic. Well, I got this garlic in front of me. I want to get some garlic and butter ready so we can make some garlic bread. That sound
Could we
good?
do some non...
Up it that way? Yeah, let's do. So the same thing we were just doing with the garlic. This isn't very different. I'm just removing this from its stem. I used the knife to cut off the root side, and I'm just gonna smash that with my knife. And these guys, I'm smashing too, because I sort of want all of it mashed. Now, what we'll do, this garlic is from down the street, and it was picked last year, so it's getting toward the end of its life. You might see little greens growing up. When I was first learning about running a kitchen, I was taught that these little green things are bitter and you don't want them. I think maybe others have heard that too. I don't think it's totally wrong, but I'm not scared of them anymore, and I actually think that they taste fine. I've never really had a problem with them since I used to avoid them for a long time, and then I started cooking with them, and I really don't worry about them. And it's just something that's going to happen if you're using local garlic. It's going to start sprouting at some point. Most of the garlic in the United States is shipped in from China, or was. I don't know if that's changing right now, but it's a funny thing to think about. And a lot of garlic is frozen. A lot of the garlic we eat has been stripped and peeled and preserved. And that's when you're in a restaurant. Almost nobody's breaking up garlic in restaurants. But this is really, I think, how it tastes best. So I'm going to worry less about whether it's got those greens on it and more about where it came from in the first place. Alright, so I cleaned this cutting board because this garlic does have some dirt on it, and I didn't want to. I'm about to chop it up, and I didn't want to chop the dirt into it. And I'm using the cutting board because I don't want the garlicky smell on my countertop. So I cut a lot of things on this counter, which you've probably seen, but never onions, garlic, and stuff like that. That smell.
Did you get the garlic to smell on this?
Yeah. Yeah. This is my garlic designated cutting board. Garlic, onion, chives, leeks, shallots. What else? Garlic mustard, maybe. This is a garlic on garlic sort of meal where I'm garlic mustard with garlic bread, huh? That's pretty fun. So I want to get this pretty fine. So what I'm going to do, my technique here, is I'm going to fan the blade so it's sort of coming through a sweeping arc, and I'm just staying very consistent in how much I'm moving the blade each cut. And so that means as I do this, all those pieces of garlic are going to get cut to a similar dimension on this side. And then I'm going to come through on another angle. And I think sometimes I see younger chefs come in and it's time to mince something up, and they're like, and the thing when you do that is you're all over the place. You hit once here, once here, once there, and who knows where you get the garlics cut. What you're trying to do is get everything about the same level. So if you're going here, 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 even if you look like you're moving really fast, it's hard to control the distribution and size. So it's a lot better than just to, it doesn't look as flashy or exciting, but just to move patiently, letting that blade move a little bit each time. And what you're going to end up with is a really nice, even mince without going crazy with that knife slapping it all over the place. And in the end, you're actually much faster, even though it doesn't look that way. This is a funny thing. I think a lot of times people think the faster the more commotion, the faster things are. A lot of times the person who has the least movements is actually moving the most quickly. All right, so I'm hoping I can find, I have to go into the dishwasher there, my trusty scraper, which I love so much. And we have our garlic now. And now we want to combine that garlic with butter. Do you want to use this blue?
Sure.
All right, so most of the time I would probably put this in a bowl to mix it up. We're basically making a compound butter right now. But in this case, we're going to use all the rest of this, so I'm just going to use that instead of dirtying a bowl. But otherwise you can mix it up in a bowl. And what I'm doing is just, this is, there's a lot of different ways to get to the same place, but this is basically a compound butter, just meaning it's butter that's mixed with some other stuff. In this case, I've mixed it with garlic. And maybe we'll put let's put some thyme in there too. So oregano? Oh, this is a Greek oregano. This is that little teeny kind of oregano. I think that'll be delicious. And blue, do you want to go out to the garden and cut a little piece of lovage? I think that'll be yummy on the garlic bread too. And maybe cut a little mint while you're out there. So we're just having, some of our herbs are starting to show up. It's fun to start working those into our meal. There we go. So this is our butter. And now, get that garlic bread going. And then we'll start boiling some water and making the pasta. So the meal's starting to come together. Hopefully we have time for it all. We do. It's going to be all right. All right. So just getting this aside. Now, I was playing around with bread last night, and I was making some rye breads, and I had a piece of dough left over. So this is not a French baguette, which I might have used if it wasn't in isolation right now, or maybe I'd use like a Italian bread of some sort, but it's actually a rye loaf. So I'm cutting this down one side, and I'm gently opening it up, prying it open. It's okay if it breaks a little on the back edge, but I want it to hold together. And now I'm taking this butter, and I'm just gonna spread that on the inside. And we've got a nice amount. And this is another one, like we talked about, not skimping on the olive oil for the pesto. Same thing goes here. You can't really make delicious garlic bread if you're skimping on the butter. So if you're going to make the garlic bread, make it delicious. If you don't want to eat all the butter and bread, just skip the garlic bread. This is something that we're gonna really enjoy with the meal. All right, and now the last thing I'm gonna show you here, this is a little bit crusty, this bread, and I actually want it to be a little softer by the time we eat it. And so we got two directions to go here. I could just put that in the oven as it is, but instead I'm going to use up a little, I'm going to use a little bit of foil, and I'm going to wrap this. And what this is going to do is it's going to give me something that's a little more moist and pliable when it comes out. So that's just wrapped in foil. We'll unwrap it when it comes out and chop it up. That's ready to go, and turn my oven on, and we'll put that in the oven in a few minutes. I'm just going to tidy up and make some room for us to do the next thing here. I think that Blue and Violet are out there having fun in the garden. I may have lost them for a little while. Alright, let me put this olive oil away. I don't need that anymore. And this guy away. Alright. So we just went through making pesto with garlic mustard. And then we made garlic bread. So we've got garlic 1 and garlic 2. And now we're going to be making pasta. And I'm just cleaning my work surface because you'll see in a minute I'm going to need to use this really actively. All right. Okay. You guys found some things? All right.
Here's some pen.
We don't exactly know, well.
Which one's the lovage?
Is this lovage? We don't know exactly.
That's it. You got it.
Good.
You weren't sure,
Yeah, we're not
but
quite
it's
sure.
nothing smells that strong except lovage, right? So lovage is a got some hairs in there. Lovage is a herb that, and I'll show this to everybody in case you haven't seen it before. It looks sort of like celery in the plant, maybe like celery or parsley, but it's got a very strong smell, and it's got a very strong flavor. It's a very distinct flavor. It's one of my very favorite herbs, and I never see it for sale anywhere, but I grow it in my herb garden, and I love it. It's we'll probably use that in the salad a little bit later. All right, you guys want to help me make some pasta?
Yeah.
Okay, so what we're gonna do, I've got to get some water boiling.
Are we gonna race it?
We're gonna race the water, yeah. Think we'll win? You like the races? You don't think we'll win? Of course we will. And I'm gonna show you guys two different ways to do this. So when I make pasta, I usually use one of these guys, and these things are awesome. It's my strongly recommended way to make pasta if you're making it at home. But it's not the only way you can do it. You can also use a rolling pin to make pasta at home. And we'll just show you both methods so that if you don't have one of these machines, you can still get going. So this thing has a little clamp, and it's going to clamp down to the surface here. And it has a roller here, and this is a dial that controls the width of that roller. And then back here, it's got two different cutting blades. So it has one for like a fettuccine, and I can't remember what the name for this is. It's sort of like spaghetti, but it's more flat than spaghetti. Maybe somebody watching knows the name that can help us with that. We can get the water boiling. There we go.
All right, let's go.
And you're afraid I'm not gonna. Don't worry, we're gonna do just fine with this. All right. So I put some salt in the water right there. We're gonna make the first one up with white flour, and I think we may make some with fresh flour as well. We can do both. And what I'm going to do is, this recipe is sort of similar a little bit to the masa, in that we usually make it by eye. And I think this is actually the right way to do it, and so I'm just going to walk you through how that works. I can give you a starting point. When the show's done, I can give a starting point in terms of quantity, but I would just start with a nest of flour, and you're going to get a sense of how much pasta you want to make. And I'm going to crack an egg in the middle there.
That's really
Now,
cool.
if I had more flour, I would do more eggs, and if I have less flour, I'd do less eggs. You could use a bowl for this too, which would be fine.
How much flour do you think that is?
How much flour is this? I don't
Yeah.
know. We'll find a ratio later and post it.
That's really cool. You use the flour to make a little.
Yeah,
ball.
isn't this fun? I like making pasta. I think it's really fun. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm just mixing the egg in the middle here, and you could do this with a fork. I'm doing it with my hands. If you want to wash your hands with soap and water, you guys can do a little bit of this too. And you can see that the egg is just starting to pick up some of the flour, which is great. It's just what I was expecting it to do. And I'm just going to let it pick up more and more. So you can see it's becoming a little bit more of a paste now. Still have some stubborn egg whites, maybe 3 fresh eggs. Just trying to get them all mixed. Before I get too much flour in there, I want that egg to be well mixed. I think it's getting there though. And there we go. So we have a nice paste forming. And you can see the flour coming into it now. More flour coming in. And now I think, I'm looking at this and I'm thinking I may need one more egg. And so I'll crack one more egg for that.
I try.
You want to try? Yeah, you can try it, Will. So you're just going to stay in the middle there, mixing that around, right?
The bowl's kind of broken.
I'm really excited to share this with everybody because when I was first learning how to make pasta, I feel like I looked at a lot of different recipes and I tried a lot of times and had bad results before I got any good at it. Story's driving Tulip nuts. Why don't you let one of them in there? Bye. All right, nice job, Lou.
Sorry.
Here. So we will. So now that I've figured out how to do this consistently, it's fun to be able to show others because I don't think everybody has figured it out yet. It's really, really yummy. You're doing an awesome job, Lou. You're like a pasta maker. So now we're going to bring in some more of this flour, and we're just making ourselves a dough here. There are pastas that are made out of without eggs, obviously. So this is like one that's with eggs, but you can make pasta without eggs too. And I'm just using a regular flour here, but you can also make this with fresh wheat. You can do really fun things with different kinds of wheats with pastas. You can also mix out of like an Italian flour. So if you have like some specialty Italian flours, you can use those for making these. So I'm
Shall I
getting
wash my
this.
hands?
Oh, here, why don't you get some more of that, your hands into that. Yeah, try and see if you can get it off your hands. There you go, that's good. Okay, and then you can just rub it off, and then whatever's left you can wash off. So it's a little bit of a messy thing, but you gotta just embrace it. It'll all come together later. So we have here our dough, and I'm just going to get this into a little bit of shape that I can work with. And maybe a little bit smaller than that. Okay. So I'm going to give myself a little ball to get started. I'm going to open this up to the widest setting and I'm just going to let that go through. And it looks a little messy at first, but that's fine. I'll run it again. And it's coming together. I'll run it again. And I'll run it one more time. Alright, now I'm going to take this and I'm just going to add a little bit of flour like this. Not a lot. I'm going to fold it on itself. I'm going to bring it back over and run it through the next setting. And now I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to turn the setting, put a little bit of flour on that, fold it on itself, bring it back this side down, roll it through again. All right. Each time I'm doing this, it's getting a little more stiff and a little bit flatter. And Blue, do you know how to open up the drying rack there?
Mm-hmm.
Do you know how to do it?
Yeah.
Okay, let's go ahead. So now I'm on setting number 5, and you can see it's coming up a little bit in that center area. That's fine, I'll just fold it over again and run it through the same setting until I get a really nice consistent result. So that's looking really good to me. You can see that. I'll go to setting number 6 now. And run it through there. And I was thinking we might do a fettuccine today. What do you think, Blue?
Sure.
Do you like that?
Yeah.
Okay. Now as I'm getting into these later rolls, I'm careful as I'm putting this in that I'm not on an angle, skew. I'm sort of using my fingers to hold that in place as I start the roll in. Okay. And we could stop here and have a little bit of a thicker pasta, or we could go thinner. Now, what do you think?
Oh, there are 9 settings.
Yeah, I think this is. Do you think we go a little? Do you like a little thicker today?
Little thin.
Little thinner.
Little.
Okay. So
7.
when you're making it yourself, you can sort of choose what you want to aim for.
Well, how thin would 9 be?
Very thin. But the different thicknesses are appropriate for different styles, and I think for the fettuccine we want to do, we don't want to get too thin. Now, I'm going to line this up and put that in there. If you find it difficult, I'm going to aim it, and I was going to aim it, and I've become pretty good at it. But if you find it difficult to line it up, you can just clip that edge so that you have a nice straight surface to begin with, because you really do want this to line up evenly when you start those rollers. You don't want to be going in a skew, or you're going to cut in an angle. And now I'm going to come down on the bottom here, and I'm going to, and I lost one in there, that's all right. I'm just going to help it out the bottom. And you can see now, I have my first pasta coming out there. We have this little rack we use. Maybe I'll put a little dusting on that side before I put it on the rack. We have this little rack we use. This is a rack that was traditionally in a lot of kitchens, but they would probably be using this for drying kitchen towels and things like that. But I think Brooke and I were staying in an old lighthouse somewhere, and we saw one of these, and I was wondering what it was, and then I looked it up, and I thought it'd be great for what we're using it for today, and also drying herbs and other things like that. So that's what we use it for. So you want to go to 0, and do you want to try and do this, Blue?
Sure.
Go ahead. Try it. Yeah. The first one comes out a little messy, but it's okay. Excellent. Then just fold it on itself. Yep. And then put it through again. Nice job. You're going to do that 2 or 3 times on that first setting. How's that coming? Looking good?
Yep.
I'm going to put the garlic bread in the oven.
Alright, looking pretty good.
You're looking like you're done? Okay.
Change it
So
up.
just change it to the next setting. You got it. Yep. You remember. Put a little flour on it. You're good learner, Blue. You're paying good attention. Just going to get the next next one's ready here. So when you put that flour on, one thing, you may not have seen me do it because I went pretty quickly. You just want to fold it on itself and then run through there. Go ahead. Nice job. Doing a really good job, Lou. You give me a little time to relax and get a glass of water and just watch you go at it, huh? Maybe I'll take advantage of this and show people how to make one with fresh pasta, fresh wheat. Need a hand? Yeah, sometimes you got it. I think you're doing great. You want to bring it up to number 2? Sometimes you can give that a little pinch to that front edge. Or you can sort of push it gently with your fingers. Just get it encouraged. There you go. And then it's going really well right now. Just give it a flip. Skip the flour this time.
Alright.
You can just sort of judge it and give it a flip. There you go. Pop it in there. Crank it through. Water's not boiled yet. That's good. And at this point, this will be probably the last flour we're going to stick on it. At this point, we probably have done enough flouring. There you go. And you're up to 4 on it. Yep. So, yeah, sometimes I'll just do this much. There you go. So there's a little technique in getting comfortable with the machine, but once you get a sense of it, you'll be able to just crank through pasta. I know that you can get motorized versions of these. I've never worked with one, but I'm sure that they work similarly. Yep. That's it. And how far did we go with the last one? 7, right?
Yeah.
All right. And you get a little workout. So, nice job. You ready for the next 7? I think this is the last one. Yep. Nice job. And now I would just do this last one more time just to get everything. There you go. Just get it all smoothed out. There you go. Slow down. Just want to help it get out. There we go. Okay. Now do you want to cut the fettuccine setting?
Sure.
Look, you've got a really nice flat edge on the front there. That's awesome. All right. So now this way this works is get that flat edge right in here. You want to make sure it's really well lined up. I'll give you a little hand there. Sometimes this helps to have 2 people. There you go. That's it. You don't have to go slow. You can go as fast as you want at this point. Just going right through. All right, and then I'm going to give it a little drag through this flour. Mostly I don't want to stick to this drying post. And there we go. All right, now I'm going to whip through the next couple because I want to beat that water just a little bit competitive. So now you get to see this happening at full speed. And give it one more run. Okay. Bring that over.
That.
Yep. Got it. Dip it in the flour a little bit and then over. Got it? Can you get up that high?
Yeah.
Alright, so I guess I installed this at like my height. Sorry, Blue. That's good. And we're obviously not drying this all the way. That did fall on the ground, but it also is going in boiling water, so it's going to be just fine. We are, that may not be fine in a restaurant setting, obviously, but in your home, you can make your own choices. We're not going to dry that all the way. I'm just using it to stage the pasta before it goes into the water. And so,
We should make ravioli sometime.
yeah. Violet has been asking to add that to the show, so I think that'll be really fun. I think she wants us to make ravioli for her birthday. I don't think we're going to film that, but I think we are going to make it on Friday. Violet discovered you can make ravioli yourself at home a few months ago. She and I tried it out, leave it there for a second, and she loves doing that. So she wants to make a ravioli company and sell the ravioli at the farmer's market. So that's Violet's ravioli company idea. And her raviolis are really, really good. We've frozen a bunch of them and put them in the freezer, so we'll pull those out sometimes. And how's that water? Is it boiling, Blue?
Oh, looks like it. Yeah.
It is?
It looks like it's just about to be.
It needs to be like bubbling boil. Is it there?
No, there's little teensy.
Ha! I think we timed this perfectly. Alright, so here we go. Dip these in the flour a little bit. And now, got those. Oh yeah, it's not there yet. It needs a little more time. So we're a little faster than that is.
Should we make?
Let's make a little bit of pasta with some fresh wheat. So I might just show you guys what that looks like. It's a little bit different. So gotta refill my silo here. It's running a little low of the hard winter wheat, so I'm gonna add some softer wheat there. This is close, but not quite. While I'm waiting for that, I'm just gonna take these herbs. I'm gonna chop those up. Trying to think of what to do for the salad tonight. And I think these are going to be really yummy there. So that's just about done. Alright. So we've got the fresh wheat here. And just clear that off. So I'm just going to clear a spot. And we do the same thing we did before. And Brooke's a little scared this feed's going to die because we have had issues when the cuckoo starts at 5 o'clock. it's cut our feet. I think we'll be okay today now. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and mix that egg in there, just like we were previously. And it's the exact same method, basically. Just with the fresh wheat. Same thing. Now, you can see it's like a more grainy look. And what I would do with this is probably give it a minute or two to hydrate. And that's just because the wheat has a lot of bran and other stuff in there, and it needs some time to absorb the liquid. But it's just a little different than the white flour in that. So I'll let it sit for a little bit and then come back to that, and we can run it through in the same way. But you can see the dough just looks a little different just because the wheat has a lot of bran in it and stuff, because I haven't bolted this or sifted it in any way. But we'll roll this out and this will make flour. If you don't have one of these, you can use a rolling pin, and the method is you roll it all flat and then you roll it up and you slice the size pasta out of it that you want, and you'll end up in the same thing. And I'm just talking you through that because I'm not sure we're going to have the time to do the rolling pin method. But I think we're almost at boiling water here. It's just shy. It needs like another minute. In the meantime, I'm going to make some salad dressing. And I think what I'll do today, I'm using Hellman's here, but to make something with like a mayonnaise-based dressing. You could use just mayonnaise, like we love to use at Clover, or you could use another kind of vegan mayonnaise if you wanted to keep this vegan. Right now the eggs are the only non-vegan component in this meal, eggs and pasta. So I'm going to add some mayonnaise in there. I've got the herbs in there right now. I'm going to add some salt in there. And I'm going to put some lemon juice in here too. I'm going to roll that lemon. It breaks up a little bit of the inside of the lemon. And then I'm going to go ahead and slice that guy in half. I'm going to pull my lemon juicer. So this has mayonnaise, salt, herbs, and lemon juice in it right now. Try and keep it in there. I love to make dressings in these jars. I use them for lots of things in the kitchen. But one of the great things about making dressing in the jar is that you can put a lid on that and shake it up and mix it around, and then when you're done with it, you can just put the extra jar into the fridge and you've got salad dressing for next time. So I'm going to go ahead and just put a little lid on this and shake that. Now, I guess at those proportions, but I've done this enough that I'm probably going to be pretty close to the texture I want. But if I want it to be a little thicker, I could put some more mayonnaise in it. If I want it to be a little more thin, I could put some water in it or some more lemon juice. And like everything, I'm just going to taste it a little bit. The dressing looks really good. And it tastes awesome. It tastes really, really good. The lemony, it's got all the fresh herbs in it. It's going to be delicious with this meal. I think that water's boiling now, which is what we were waiting for. And now I'm going to carefully lift these guys off. And we weren't leaving them up here all the way until they dry, so they're still flexible. I'm going to go ahead and just drop those in the water. And when I do that, I want to stir them around. Like, I don't want to give them too much time in that water before I stir them, or they'll start to clump. So drop them all in, stir it around a couple times. And this is going to cook up very, very quickly, so we don't have to have it in there very long. It'll be ready to come out in just a couple minutes, and we'll pull our garlic bread out, and we'll be
It's like spinning.
on the way down the dinner. So I'm going to get a bowl ready for that. I've got my pesto right here. going to do probably about 3 minutes in there total, so it's going to be pretty fast. Let's get the salad ready next time, guys. What should we serve the salad in today? Maybe...
Wait, are we having pasta?
Yeah.
Pesto?
Garlic bread.
Garlic bread?
You get the bread.
Salad?
Oh yeah, that's where the other bowl is. The other bowl has become my like bread cornucopia. I'll use this bowl for the salad. And we will wash some lettuce in the same spinner. Will you want to do that for me, bud?
Sure.
All right. So we're just if you can just go ahead and grab some of the lettuce from right there, and let's use like maybe half of that lettuce, maybe a little less than half. Yeah, one of those. That's great. We'll just wash that.
And this is like actually still good.
All right. And so I'm looking at this pasta. It's probably about done, but if you're not sure, a good test is just to take a little piece of it. Take a little bite, and I want it to still have like a toothy springiness to it, but I don't want it to like seem too raw. And this is in a great spot right now. I'm really happy with it. What's that?
Should I take off this?
Yeah, just take that whole root ball off of it.
Is this dirt?
Yeah. So it may have been grown hydroponically, so it may have been grown in water. I'm gonna go ahead and take this little guy. Now, if I was doing a tomato sauce of some sort, I would reserve this cooking liquid because I would be using that to help finish building my sauce. And we may do some of those in future episodes, but for this one with the pesto, I don't really need any of that cooking liquid. And so I'm just going to put that in. And I'll add a little bit of the pesto.
Oh, wow.
Do you want to go get those yellow tongs?
Of course.
Thank you, sweetie. How's that going there on cleaning that below? Pretty good. So we're just gonna clean this way. Yes, those are perfect. Why don't you just toss that pasta in the pesto a little bit, Violet? Yeah, just get it to coat a little bit. Figure out if we need some more. All right.
Did you say a little more?
What do you think, girl?
Really good.
Your choice. So I've just got some simple, a really simple salad there with some lettuce in it. I'm gonna take a peek in my fridge and see if there's anything else I want to add to that salad. I think I might just add a little bit of kraut I have. I don't want to add so much of it that the whole thing tastes like sauerkraut, but I just want a little bit of acid in there, a little bit of color, which I think will be yummy. And then let's go ahead and put our dressing on this.
I'd say a little more pesto.
A little more pesto? Okay. So put a little dressing on that, and we've got, oh yeah, I think you're right, Violet.
I like that.
Which one do you like, the pesto?
Yeah,
You like the pesto a lot? Alright, why don't you go ahead and stir that. And then what we're going to do is once you've got the right amount, which I think you're about there, Violet, let's put some, that looks awesome. Alright,
Yeah.
so let's put some pine nuts on it.
And I put some.
I'll put the flowers on it. That's looking great. And I've got the salad all ready to go here now. So this is like really lemony and citrusy feeling salad, which is going to balance the pasta really nicely, which is going to be like really beautiful with olive oil, and
It's really
I
pretty.
might get a little fancy olive oil I have saved away back here. And so sometimes we'll just do a little bit of olive oil just drizzled on it at the finish. And I might put a little bit of brown pepper on it at the finish. Not a lot, just a little bit of that. And let's get the garlic bread out. The garlic bread smells really good. I'm happy we made this. It's like putting a smile on my face. I'm glad we made the garlic bread. Gotta put ourselves on the board for this. And so I guess the next challenge for us will be making the pasta before the water boils and cleaning it up. That'll be like phase 2 for us. But so right here what I have, when my dad made garlic bread, which I always loved when I was a kid, he would usually make it like this, and we would probably have a baguette from Hemmelman's, which was a bakery up in Brattleboro, Vermont, near where I grew up, and he would heat it up in aluminum foil just like I did, and that keeps a little bit of a softer crust on it, and you can see the garlic and the butter has come in there. Yeah, we did. This is a rye bread we made. But that will be a delicious accompaniment to the salad and the pasta. And it's so nice out. I think we might eat on the porch today, or maybe even outside. So we went through today making a full meal. We made pasta, we made pesto, and I'm hoping that you guys try pesto, whether or not you've got mustard greens that you need to yank out of the yard or not. You could do this with other bitter greens too and make a really beautiful pesto. And then we made a salad and a really simple dressing. It's something I want to spend some more time on in the future, is talking about salad dressings. And we made some garlic bread too. So a meal where we're using local flour, we're using some local greens, we're using some local cabbage that we made sauerkraut with, we're using some herbs from our garden, we're using eggs from our chickens, and we're using some mustard garlic picked out from the yard. So thanks for joining us on In Air's Kitchen. We'll be back tomorrow at 4 and doing popcorn.